LBC News, where the news never stops.
Now to the Vatican. The Pope has been out and about in his wheelchair, waving at crowds on Palm Sunday. We'll talk to Gavin Ashenden, former chaplain to Queen Elizabeth, associate editor of the Catholic Herald and co-presenter of the Catholic Unscripted podcast. Gavin, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Who would have thought a few weeks ago that we would be seeing the Pope out and about like this? He looks in fine health.
Well, I have two responses. I suppose there's a kind of natural one, which is yours. Who would have thought it? That's incredible. He must have been very close to death. And another one, which is if you ask a lot of people who pray a lot of the time to pray for him, perhaps we shouldn't be that surprised if the prayers are answered. On the other hand, prayer doesn't work like magic, and he is near the end of his life. I listening to him speak and try and offer blessings, I thought he was very frail. So I'm thrilled he's still with us, but I'm sorry to see him so frail after such a serious illness.
Do you think that there'll be any pressure to have him out and about and visible to show that he's there, he's back, he's in charge? Or because that is sort of, part of the equation when you're talking about such a public figure?
Well, you've actually, in a subtle way, raised a very difficult political issue for Catholics. You'll remember that Pope Benedict XVI, much loved, retired because he thought he couldn't do what was required of him. And we're told that Pope Francis left a form of living will, saying that if he became incapacitated and could no longer act properly as Pope, he would retire too. So a lot of people said to themselves, well, this would surely be the moment. He's less than full capacity, and he hasn't done. So I think one of the things we're seeing is a determination to stay in office, not to retire, to continue to exercise his role. And he's surrounded by a very well-resourced infrastructure. There's no reason why he shouldn't. It's a matter of choice for him. But I think some people will be a bit surprised that his previous offer not to stay in post if he couldn't bring his whole energy and competence to it wasn't affected.
Do you think there's still a sense perhaps that weighs on Pope Francis that it's improper to do that in exactly the same way as it is on monarchs in the UK who think, well, there might be some sense in retiring or, abdicating and letting the next generation take over? That's just not how it's supposed to be?
Well, there are two views. One is the one you just expressed. You're an icon, you're a symbol, you serve until you drop, and there's a great deal of virtue and value in that. The other one is that we're in a degree of crisis. There's a culture war going on. There are very serious issues like the continued cover-up of sexual predation right at the top, some of which tragically lands at the feet of Pope Francis himself. And that there are so many important things that need to be done for the health of the church that you would want to have an active pope to do them. So I think it depends which of those two views you take.
Right. We're all familiar with the process of selecting Pope Francis's successor whenever that time comes. Because it's such a political organisation, the Vatican, I can't believe that behind the scenes people aren't already talking about it.
They've probably been talking about it from the day he was elected. It's a bit like, politics is the same the world over. People are very interested in power and who's in and who's out. The thing is that, I don't mean to be too personal, but I think this will turn out to be one of the most important papal conclaves there is, partly because Pope Francis has brought the Catholic Church to a crossroads. Well, actually, he's taken it across the crossroads and he's turned left. And there are a lot of people who will very much hope that the next pope will correct that and continue in the same trajectory of faithful Catholicism. So we've got a crisis on, and it'll take some time to resolve. There are essentially two basic directions. We'll see who the cardinals find themselves wanting to elect.
And does Pope Francis or any pope get involved in that conversation? Because again, if we're sort of realistic about it, I suppose popes would want to influence who came next because of the policy implications that you've just alluded to.
Well, of course they do. and one of the ways they do it is by appointing the kind of cardinals they hope will vote for a replica of themselves. And everyone, since Pope Francis has chosen most of the cardinals in the conclave, there's an immediate assumption that they will produce Francis II. On the other hand, you have issues like the fact that the Latin Mass and the traditionalists are the fastest growing part of the church, and astonishingly, young people between the ages of 15 and 30 are converting in droves to the Latin Mass, which Pope Francis has tried to ban. And so I think any sensible observer will say it doesn't look like the present formula is the right one for the church. So we'll have to see what they make of the circumstances they observe.
That's so interesting. Is that to do with the parts of the world where Catholicism is growing the quickest? That there are, in the end, conservative parts of the world. Is that why that is, or is there something more at play there?
No, I think it's something else. I think it's the fact that we've raised generations of youngsters on a diet of materialism and a sort of charmless vacancy. Several people have written books saying that the world is missing a form of enchantment which spirituality and good religion brings. We're not meant to live like as if we had no souls, as if we had no deeper meaning. We're not meant to live like we're consumers. And one of the most beautiful parts of being a Catholic is this extraordinary series of prayers that are nearly 2,000 years old and have been used in continuity and bring a fantastic sense of transcendence, mystery, and I have to say spiritual power too. And so it's odd that one of the things that the church has done, and it's not alone in this, other institutions have done the same kind of thing, is to strip itself out in the name of modernity, of the things that have worked best for it. So the younger generation have discovered that the Latin Mass works best, and they're flocking over to find it.
So interesting to talk to you, Gavin. Thank you very much. Gavin Ashenden live on LBC News at 3 minutes to 4. Let me give you the full-time scores in the Football Premier League games that have just finished. Chelsea 2.